Welcome back to another episode of Consciously Clueless. You're here because you want to learn about how to live a healthier life, how to live more sustainably, how to take your everyday actions and make them work for you and the planet. Sometimes it might feel like you've got this figured out, and other times you probably feel lost. That's why I'm here. Together, we will learn how to live happier, healthier lives without the need to be perfect, and always allowing space for a little cluelessness on this journey to living a more conscious life. Today on the podcast, I talked to Boadi. He was one of my first guests, and this plant-based nutrition and wellness advocate is back to talk to us about how mushrooms can level up your health. Here we go. In 2016, Mint Mobile was born because its founders thought that big wireless was, well, dumb. So they decided it was time to create a smarter wireless company, one that extends its middle finger to conventional truths while also pointing out where big wireless is letting people down. They're online only. You can buy plans that are 3-month, 6-month, 12-month, no contracts. Choose to stay as long as you want. There are no overages. There's no surprises. There's just no BS. And for someone who lives in a remote area like myself, I can attest to the fact that the service is great and I have truly had no problems and oftentimes is better than the big wireless companies I was with before. To find out more about how Mint Mobile can work for you, hit the link in the show notes so they know that I sent you. Okay, so thank you for joining me again. You were one of my first guests when I had recently Googled how to start a podcast. So thank you for being willing to take a chance on me 2 years ago now.
Yeah, it was back in 2020, wasn't it? Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So how have you been? It's been 2 years. Quick check-in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, lots of ups and downs, but, mostly good. Things are... Yeah, I think obviously I've been in a place of things that happen in my private life, but in terms of like the community and really just growing the belief that people want to understand more about plant-based nutrition and really just educating people and continuing to share recipes and the opportunities that have come off the back of that have been really good to continue just spreading the message that I just believe in so strongly. So yeah, I've been really, really grateful and kind of just happy to see the community continue to grow and people come on board. So that's been good.
I love it. I can totally tell now that I've followed you for years, and I am someone who genuinely has really appreciated your content for so long. And you are one of my go-to places where I send other people or where I look for myself for that like easy to understand vegan nutrition. And like the thing, like what do I actually need to understand and what do I don't? And I really appreciate that about your content. It's so helpful.
No, I appreciate that because I think there is so much out there in the social media world. People will say X, Y, and Z. Like I even had someone asking me today, like, how do you know what's good? And with all of these things, it's so difficult. And I understand, like, it is a bit of a minefield out there. I think it's important for me, especially not to be dogmatic because you get people in the kind of plant-based world who have a bit of dogma and say all animal products are bad and you eat this, you get cancer. And it's just like, it's not that simple. It's about understanding that people's nutrition is very individualized to them. I always encourage them to just, see what works for you. I can give you like the broad overview, but of course, it might not work for everyone. And two, not trying, not operating from a place of hyperbole and say, oh, this is that. And, if you eat this, this is going to happen and cut this food out. It's not as simple as that. But I guess that's what sells and gets the most likes and clicks on social media,
Yeah, that's something else I appreciate about your content too, is that when I first went vegan, there were so many places that I looked hoping for guidance, but ended up just making me feel bad. Making me feel like I wasn't doing enough or like I was not smart enough to understand this or whatever. And that automatically is going to make people be like, well, this is dumb.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I just try and put good information out there, build a community, and then go from there. And as I said, it never kind of crossed my mind, when I started all the years ago to try and make money from it. It was just to share my experience and share the knowledge that I was gaining. But, I guess there's been opportunities that have come off the back of that, which I'm really grateful for. But my main aim is just to continue inspiring as many people as possible. That's my primary goal. And whatever comes off the back of that is just a bonus.
That's really nice. And I really love the recipes and those things
Mm.
that you share too, because when I first started being like, okay, I think I'm going to be a content creator, which is such a weird
Yeah,
thing to like admit out loud at
I know.
first. You're like, what am I doing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I do enjoy it. But at first I was like, okay, well, if I talk about veganism, that basically means I have to be a vegan chef.
Mm,
And
mm.
that's just not my lane.
No,
Like, that's
yeah,
just
yeah,
not, I'm not going to create recipes. I'm not going to, like, it's not often going to look cute. Like, it's just
yeah.
not. And once I let that go and was like, I can talk about being vegan without having, like, the cutest page of food
Mm,
and other people that, like you, that
yeah,
are like, that's what you're good at. I love that. I love following people
yeah.
because it ain't me. It's not going to be me for that content.
Well, as I said, you just got to do, I guess, what you feel comfortable with. And I'm sure you've inspired a ton of people in your own way of kind of getting the message across. So that's all that matters, just staying in what you believe to be true for yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So specifically, not only just to catch up and talk about all the amazing things you're doing, but I was seeing you post on social media on Instagram about mushrooms.
Yeah.
And it's something I've been interested in for a couple years. And we can get into like what kind of mushrooms we're talking about because there's a few
Mm.
people that are like, I'm so engaged right now. We're talking about shrooms. And it's something that I've like really actually been interested in, haven't dove into too much on my own. And
Mm.
somebody asked me about, because I have like chaga mushroom
Yeah.
powder that, because it's a local thing where I live. And
Mm.
somebody asked me about it. And then I realized I was like, I just do this because I think it's right, but I don't have a lot
Yeah.
of information.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
kept seeing your content and I was like, I think we have to have someone on the podcast to talk about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so let's talk about mushrooms.
Yeah, so mushrooms are a really interesting one because, of course, you've got culinary mushrooms, the typical white button, chestnut mushrooms, things like that. You've got medicinal mushrooms, so chaga, reishi, lion's mane, maitake, all these types of mushrooms. And of course, you've got psychedelic mushrooms,
Hmm.
psilocybin, XYZ. I first, I guess, got into mushrooms. Well, interestingly enough, actually, I used to really hate culinary mushrooms. I did not like them at
Me
all
too.
before I went plant-based. And then I went vegan, and then mushrooms just found their way back into my routine, and now I just absolutely love them. I have them all the time, and they're very, very healthy as well. When with the medicinal mushrooms, it was funny because I
Hmm.
was listening to a podcast. I was listening to an episode of the Rich Roll podcast,
Hmm.
and he had this is the I'd heard nothing about mushrooms before at all in terms of like drinking mushrooms as a tea.
Yeah.
And he had the founder of Four Sigmatic, the mushroom company Four
That's
Sigmatic.
the podcast that started my mushroom interest too. That's the exact episode.
There we go. There we go.
Literally.
Literally, I was listening to it and I was just like, no, no, there's no way. Drinking mushrooms, that's just weird. Because I kept on thinking of culinary mushrooms in hot water and how weird that would taste.
Yes. Yeah. And like gross.
Yeah, I was just like, that's just going to be weird. But then, so where I live, where I was living at the time, there's a health food store called Planet Organic in London, which I've become very familiar with over the years. Like I just love spending time in there, and I spend a lot of money in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wrongly,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
but to be honest, it's about health. So it's all for a good cause. And
Totally.
then I saw this area of mushrooms, and they had a few different brands. They had the brand that the owner of Four Sigmatic, they had that brand there. They had another brand called Hybrid Herbs, which is the one that I use a lot and I've become really familiar with. And then they had a few others like Mushrooms for Life. So I just thought, you know what? And I read the back and I started doing a bit of research as well. And I just thought, you know what? Let me just have a go. Let me just start using them. And so chaga became the one really that was like the one that kind of became a staple in my routine. And I think it's important to say as well, like whilst I do think mushrooms have great benefit, I do think that in the context of my wider lifestyle, I don't think someone who's maybe starting out with a healthier lifestyle should go right to chaga mushroom and it's going to fix
Right.
everything.
Right.
I think it's important to recognize that these aren't like a panacea or anything, but I do strongly believe that drinking chaga mushroom very regularly just I didn't get ill. I haven't been sick. I mean, I got what was it, COVID maybe a
Yes.
few months back.
Immunity.
Yeah, because there is such a potent immune booster. Very, very good for your gut bacteria. The range of mushrooms are, and obviously we know that modulated gut bacteria will be so beneficial downstream for immune health.
Right.
Lowered risk of type 2 diabetes and all those types of things. It's an antiviral as well. There have actually been some preliminary studies that I've looked at. I remember someone shared one on social media once, preliminary studies looking at it in its combat in terms of respiratory viruses. Now, of course, with what's happened in the last couple of years, I thought that was very, very interesting. I think it was a very small scale study, so probably not one to hang your hat on, but still interesting all the same. And another interesting fact that I felt about chaga, and I don't think there aren't any studies to provide evidence. So this is more like intuition. I feel like, people talk about chaga decalcifying the pineal gland and making your awareness, like your third eye, just bringing more awareness to your life. And I genuinely felt that when I started drinking chaga, in a few weeks, I just had an enhanced awareness. And again, I can't quantify it, but that's just what I felt. So I was just like, you know what, this is the real deal. Like, and since then, this was 5 years ago that I first got into mushrooms. They continue to be a staple part of my routine, whether that's having a cup of chaga in the morning, having a cup of reishi closer to bedtime. Reishi is great for a sense of de-stressing, calmness, inducing healthy sleep. Lion's mane's been shown in studies to be very, very beneficial for cognitive function. So if I have like meetings or long periods of work, I'll tend to drink lion's mane. Cordyceps as well has been very, shown to be very beneficial for exercise performance. So what it does is it increases production of adenosine triphosphate, otherwise known as ATP, which is like the energy source of our mitochondria. So that's like the battery of our cells, essentially. So, and then you've got like maitake and shiitake, which are very, very beneficial. Interestingly enough, shiitake mushroom, when I went to Uganda at the end of last year, I saw some studies about shiitake mushroom in relation to malaria. So I just thought I would just take some. I did get the injection anyway. I got the yellow fever injection for yellow fever. And I did have some malaria medication with me anyway, but I thought, let me take some of it, but I'm also going to take some shiitake mushroom as well. And I was absolutely fine. Maybe I got lucky, who knows? Right. But either way, shiitake mushroom, very, very beneficial, again, for your gut bacteria, immune health. So mushrooms are really, really powerful. Like I will stand by that, and I'll be drinking them for as long as I live. Like they're just very, very potent. I always have some in my cupboards, and particularly in wintertime. Chaga is one that I think in winter, when those colds and those flus and those different viruses are knocking around, just enhancing that immunity, getting that antiviral potency up there. So yeah, I'm a big fan of mushrooms.
I love what you said. I want to go back to a couple things. I love what you said first about this isn't like, if you're just being like, I need to switch my life up, I need to get healthier, this isn't your first step. And for me, when I was, I think we probably talked about this 2 years ago, but when I first started diving into like being vegan, learning about sustainability, I was like all in. I need to do everything right now. I was looking for that silver bullet of a superfood that was going to change everything. And for a while I was like, it's mushrooms. That's obviously it. It's cool. I heard this on the Rich Roll podcast. Obviously everything's great. And I liked it because I liked that idea of like ritual. I felt very witchy, adding powders to teas and all of it. But I kind of like went up and down because I didn't do the research and didn't find out the why. Like I wasn't really figuring the total why out. So I like that you said like, this isn't the silver bullet. Like this isn't the thing that's going to change your life, but it could change your life.
Yeah, it could help in the context of if you, just overall make a kind of foundational shift in many different areas, and ideally want to do those slowly and not try and burden yourself by doing all of those things all at once. But it's important to know, I think that some superfood is obviously used very, very frequently in society. So you've got things like chaga mushroom, you've got the maca powder, the green powders, you've got things like sea moss. These are all great. Like I really like all of these, but I think the problem is that people think that, again, as you mentioned there, they think that these are going to be the silver bullet that, they're just going to take, 1 tablespoon of sea moss in their smoothie and they can still go out and, do abuse substances and drink and smoke and eat poorly. But, I've had my sea moss, so I'm all good. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
I almost see these foods as like the icing on the cake. When you've really got yourself down to like a foundational level, you've started removing processed foods for your diet, you're drinking more water, you're eating more whole foods, just the really boring basic stuff.
Yeah.
But again, I think in society, we like the sexy thing. We like the thing that's shiny. Like, lentils aren't very marketable, but sea moss is, you know what I mean? But lentils over the long haul, you're going to be consuming those a lot more, and you can get those into your diet in many different ways. And so, I just see them as more like the icing on the cake that can give you that extra 1 or 2%, which can make a huge difference. But do I see them as a starting point? Probably not.
So if someone is listening to this and they're like, okay, I am living a healthier life, like maybe mushrooms is something I want to look into that's intriguing. Like, where
Yeah,
do you tell people to start? Because if you Google medicinal mushroom powders
yeah,
now in
yeah,
2022, you are inundated with shit.
yeah. There's so much. There's so many. I always point to, so as I said, the brand that I use most is Hybrid Herbs,
Hmm.
and they've been around for long time. And it's funny because I started using them in 2017, and I think around about lockdown time, I think I posted about them, and I then started to become, I've started to develop quite a rapport with the owner of the company, and
Mm,
then we've like become friends. We chat all the time. Like, he's a really cool guy, and what I've noticed about him, he's very much, he loves he loves the quality of the product.
mm.
They're not very much, and you've got obviously Four Sigmatic. They've probably pumped a lot of money into marketing and things like that. They're a very small company, Hybrid Herbs, but he's very focused on, I want to get a top quality product out there.
Yeah.
And we were having a conversation the other day. We were just saying, like, every man and their dog is selling mushroom powders. Everyone is, but how do you know what's good quality? So I every time people ask me about mushrooms, I always say Hybrid Herbs, and they don't pay me to say it. I just think because it's had such a profound impact on my life, and I know the character of my friend Kieran, who's the owner of the company. He's got great character. He talks about wanting the quality of the product to be optimal, and personally, the blends that they have are of the highest quality, and I can say that from experience. So I always put them in that direction in terms of a brand. And then in terms of which products, I
Yeah.
think the one that people should probably start with is probably chaga. That's like for me, that's like, it's known as the king of medicinal mushrooms. That's like the all-rounder. You've got antiviral, immune boosting effects. You've got your, enhanced gut bacteria.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like it's a workhorse. That's the way I see it. You've got the others that you can do for sleep and exercise and cognitive function, but I think just from an immunity standpoint, chaga is probably the best one to start with, and then you can kind of move from there and branch out into some of the others.
I really like that. That's really helpful to give people a starting point because I think that with so many of these things, that's why people give up because it's just so
Mm.
overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, why would I take all this? They're mushrooms. Why am I have to research all
Mm.
these mushrooms? So I
Yeah,
love that you
yeah,
kind of are like
yeah.
giving this starting point. Something I'm curious about. So I right now is getting back into it, getting like I was researching. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna talk to Jeffrey. I got to get my shit together here. Let me get
Yeah.
back on mushrooms. And so I found a blend of medicinal mushrooms actually in my local co-op, and
Hmm.
it's the Four Sigmatic brand.
Okay.
And it was a little more expensive than I was hoping for,
Yeah, yeah,
but just like you said, they've pumped so
yeah.
much into marketing. But I was
Mm.
like, I'll start here. I know it's probably good, and then I'll like look for another brand that I really
Mm.
love. But that blend is a mix of all of the ones you've
Yes,
named.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I like that idea instead of having to like think about like
Which, yeah, no,
reishi for
yeah,
this,
yeah,
lion's mane
yeah.
for this. I mean, I love lion's mane. My that one has always been top of mind. My grandma had Alzheimer's and
Mm.
passed away from that, so I'm always like anything that says cognitive function, I'm like, yep, yep, yep.
Yeah.
But is there a plus or a minus, or is it better or worse to have a blend or to have them separately? Is there any research on that? Because when you were saying like, oh, when I do a workout for night, I was like, oh shit, do I
Yeah.
need to do better at this?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I think it's going to be different for everyone. In terms of the research, whether blends are better than the single products, it's not something that I've actually looked at. I don't know. Maybe for me, I just tend to like taking them for specific reasons. So I like to
Yeah.
have my, chaga in the morning just to enhance my immunity first thing in the morning, those antiviral effects. I like reishi later on in the evening. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I wouldn't want to enhance my cognitive function when I'm trying to wind down. So
Right.
I'd always want maybe just reishi as opposed to a blend that might have lion's mane and cordyceps in there as well.
Right.
That's just the way that I think about it. Whether this is, science or not, I don't know. This is just the way that I see it. And of course, as I said, when I'm thinking about exercise, I would want just cordyceps as opposed to like a reishi, which is also going to have those calming properties in there because I want to be obviously quite amped up for a workout. So
Right.
that's why I like to use them singularly. That's kind of the way that I see it.
No, that makes total sense. And it's something to think about because I've just been putting like a serving in my morning black tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's probably better than doing that blend at night.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah. I'd say
so
so. Yeah.
so the thing you mentioned about studies and research and stuff, this seems to be from my like cursory Google,
Mm.
searches. Obviously there's a lot of products and there's a lot of blog posts about
Yeah.
mushrooms now, but the research seems to be like meh. Is
Yeah,
that
do you know?
what's
Yeah,
happening?
it is. So I think there are some, again, there's some studies, for example, of lion's mane. I think there was a study done on Japanese men that showed that 3 grams of lion's mane can improve like cognitive ability. And again, I have
Cool.
to recap on those studies, but there are a lot of studies that have also been done in animals. And again, while they're interesting,
Mm,
they may not necessarily always translate to humans.
right.
Again, I guess getting funding for studies is not easy. For companies to really put a product out there. If you want to get studies and the highest quality study, like a randomized controlled trial, that's going to have to be done over a period of time. You're going to have a control group. There's ethical considerations within,
Yeah.
with doing those. And again, there may just not be that much money. Like I'm sure these companies would rather spend money on whether it's marketing or product development or things like that, as opposed to, pumping it into studies. So that's why I think the studies are quite sparse on the ground. I'd like to see more personally, particularly on ones like chaga for those antiviral impact, and also, as I said, lion's mane, because cognitive decline is a huge one. Of course, there are other elements that we can adopt to slow down cognitive decline, so like weightlifting and getting more plants into your diet, more polyphenols, berries, things like that. But in terms of the mushrooms, I would like to see more research. So I'm always keeping an eye out. So I'll definitely let you know if I come across some.
Yeah, that would be great to share in the newsletter. I'm also wondering, and I'm not trying to make a comparison between like marijuana or CBD and mushrooms necessarily, but
Yeah.
I wonder if this is right in your opinion, that there is some questioning of like that Eastern Western idea too, of like
Mm.
medicine and what can be helpful. Like, do you think that's a reason it's underfunded as well? It's not looked at as like a serious thing.
Yeah, possibly. I think again, if there's something out there that might take away from profits of the pharmaceutical industry, then whether it be easy to get that funding, it might be a bit harder for sure. Of course,
Right.
money always talks, and if a large pharmaceutical company brings out a product which they know is going to make money on the market, and they have that money behind them to put into studies and things like that, then they're probably going to be able to get that that leg up. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think that
totally.
probably does play a part. Which is frustrating, because I'm sure a lot of these products, reishis and the chagas, like I've seen them have benefits in my own life. So I'm sure that they would have benefits in other people's lives and on a wider scale. But I guess it remains to be seen in terms of whether we see more studies on them or not.
Yeah. So, and I think even in the last few years from, maybe we can thank Rich Roll for the, and for, for
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
boom of mushrooms.
yeah.
But, I'm wondering if you see, just because I think so much more about the industry and you've become friends with, the owner of the company that
Mm.
you enjoy, which is one of the cool things about the internet, right? Like those
Yeah,
are the cool
exactly.
moments,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
where
yeah,
we can
yeah.
have this rapport from knowing each
Exactly.
other on
Yeah,
Instagram or whatever.
it's
Like I know
crazy.
that social
Yeah,
media can suck, but it's cool too.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there are some really good things about it. We
Yeah,
can't deny that.
totally. So I'm wondering if, like, from your opinion, like, do you see what's on the horizon? Like, is there anything like that the mushroom, like medicinal mushroom industry, like, do you think it's gonna grow? Do you think it's gonna like add on new products? Like, I don't know. I'm just curious, like, if it's already blown up so much, like, what do you think's coming next?
So I think obviously there's going to be probably a lot more companies who are going to be trying to get the message of mushrooms out there. Of course, in the last so I started drinking them in 2017. So yeah, in the last 5 years, it's obviously got huge. And again, that's
Right.
probably just based on word of mouth and people going into health stores trying it out. Falls Matter, a big company. There are other big companies coming up, and Mushrooms for Life is another big one. I think there's one in Australia as well called Life Cycle. They make
Okay.
mushroom tinctures, so the little drops.
Huh.
So yeah, it's becoming bigger. I don't know in terms of. Yeah, I would personally like to see it become more mainstream. It's
Right.
still quite a fringe idea.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more mainstream. I don't think I guess there aren't going to be any more that come out, because the existence of the ones that are here are kind of here. I mean, there are some others which maybe aren't as popular at the moment. So, for example, tremella mushroom is a really good mushroom
Hmm.
for skin. So it has a really high concentration of hyaluronic acid, but that's maybe not so popular. But as the skincare industry continues to grow, they might look to use products like
Yeah.
tremella mushroom. And I mean, there's some plant-based collagen supplements that have tremella mushroom in them.
Okay.
So yeah, those maybe some of the ones that aren't as popular, I guess, might start to be enhanced. in their popularity. So I think that's probably one of the things that we could expect to see on the horizon.
This podcast is sponsored by TerraSeed. TerraSeed is on a mission to disrupt the vitamin industry, empower vegans, and reduce plastic waste in the world. They put everything plant-based people struggle to get in an all-inclusive, vegan, compostable package multivitamin that replenishes them and our planet every single day. Seriously, y'all, win, win, win. Even if you're not vegan, this vitamin will help you get those key nutrients that you need. I am so excited to share a discount code for your first purchase. Use code CARLY50 at checkout to get 50% off. Again, that's CARLY50 for 50% off your first purchase at terraseed.com. Don't forget this code so they know I sent you. This podcast is supported by Who Gives a Crap. Who Gives a Crap is an eco-friendly toilet paper company that donates 50% of its profits to help ensure everyone has access to clean water and a toilet within our lifetime. Who Gives a Crap has donated almost $8 million to nonprofit organizations who help provide clean water and toilets all over the world. Who Gives a Crap is delivered straight to your door with carbon neutral delivery. I love that it comes that way. I don't have to think about it. It's an automatic subscription, and I want you to try it. You can check out Who Gives a Crap and get $10 off your first order over $54 with the code CARLY10. That's CARLY 10, or check out the link in the show notes. And used in cool ways like that too, where like people might be taking a plant-based collagen with, what was the mushroom? Tremella?
Tremella, yeah.
Tremella, like, and that's in there, and they might not even realize that that's like a part of why it works for them.
Yeah, exactly. And I did actually see, so, have you seen the documentary Fantastic Fungi?
I haven't. I've had so many people tell me to watch it. Do I need to watch it?
It's the best documentary I've ever watched, personally.
Oh my God. Okay, well, I'll watch it. That's a pretty high. That's like a pretty high. And I know you've seen some documentaries.
Yeah. So the guy one of the main guys in the documentary, Paul Stamets, he's got a mushroom company called Host Defense, right? So again, they make like chaga, turkey tail, etc., etc. His mum, I think in her 80s, was diagnosed with breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And while she was going through the treatment, he got her onto turkey tail mushroom as well. And it in the combination of the two helped to get her the all clear. So that's I mean, I'm sure people watching that would have been an eye opener for them in terms of the real power that turkey tail mushroom has. But again, it's maybe not one of the more popular ones if you think about like chaga, reishi, cordyceps, lion's mane. So I think maybe there are going to be some more that are going to emerge from the shadows and maybe start to punch their way in the market as well and become more popular.
I love that. I was going to ask this question before, but I get so excited when talking about these things that I kind of have to bounce around. But I was wondering, so like you named a couple of brands when we were talking about like where do people start? Yeah. So let's say those, a brand or two that they're like, oh, I haven't seen those, or those aren't near me, but I've seen this brand, and this brand. Yeah. Is there any advice you could give to people on kind of how to vet those things? Like, is there something you would look for that means like, oh, this is sustainable or this is like, are there any language or words? Like, how do you tell if this is bullshit or not?
So, there are companies that cut corners when it comes to mushrooms. And I think the two things that people should look for is, firstly, you'd want the fruiting body of the mushroom. That's the part of the mushroom that has the most concentrated source of its nutrition. So if you flip on the back and you see XYZ fruiting body, you've got a pretty decent product. And then you want the mushroom to be grown on wood and not oats, because I don't know exactly why this is. I've done a bit of research into it. I need to recap on it. But wood grown mushrooms are a better option, a better bet than oats grown mushrooms. So making sure that they're grown on wood is always a good thing. So I'd say those are the two that you'd want to look out for.
Oats, as in like my morning oats?
Yeah.
How does that work? I didn't know this was a thing. I just imagine all mushrooms on a log.
Yeah, well, that's where they essentially should be in nature. But I guess people could probably grow them, whether it's hydroponically or whatever, as part of what they're doing with their brand. But is that are you getting the quality and the,
Right.
getting the best option? Probably not, from what I've
Right.
seen anyway.
Have you ever tried growing any of these types of mushrooms on your own? Because there's like those home kits where you can like
Yeah.
do it out of a box or whatever. And I'm always like, those look so fun, but I don't know if this is real.
You know what? I was actually looking around about 4 or 5 months ago. I was looking at it, and then it kind of fell off my radar. And I was literally just last week looking for mushroom growing kits. It's been on my radar. It's been of interest to me. Um, when I'll do it, I'm not too sure, but it has been something that has crossed my mind at certain points.
I'd be so interested to see how that can work. Like for me, I live somewhere where, you know, 3 months of the year is like good weather, but
Mm.
otherwise it's a hard growing area. I'm in
Yeah, yeah,
northern Minnesota near
yeah,
Canada.
yeah.
So, mine would have to be like inside mostly, and I live in a
Yeah,
tiny home, and I'm like, where am I going to put a log with mushrooms?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I love the idea. It would be so cool to see like what different conditions they can last in growing
yeah,
yourself.
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Is there anything that you has like surprised you when you started doing research about like the things that mushrooms can help, or anything that's like really blown your mind when you've been learning about this stuff?
So there were a few papers that I was actually looking at. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Because I was going to try maybe start to create some more content around mushrooms,
Mm,
um, and yeah, just like the impact that mushrooms can have in terms of the gut, like in terms of our gut health. And obviously, we know that if we have a healthy gut in terms of gut bacteria, we know that that has a massive impact in terms of reduction of type 2 diabetes,
yep.
cardiovascular disease, obesity, certain cancers, and mushrooms play a huge role in that. In terms of the key ingredient is the polysaccharides, the fiber, and that is what helps to populate our gut bacteria. That is what helps to almost just enhance our immunity and all these different things. And yeah, that's. I was looking at a paper. As I said, I'm going to have a look at a few more of these papers and see if I can just get more and dive deeper into it, because there is some really interesting stuff out there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see in a future newsletter some of those
Yeah,
topics come out. Have
yeah.
you I know some people, like I've seen recipes on, I don't know, Pinterest or wherever
Mhm.
I'm looking, probably Instagram. Places I need inspiration to cook, because that's,
Yeah.
remember, that's not coming from me. Do you cook with medicinal mushrooms at all? Because I've seen that in like suggested, and then part of me is like, does that have the same effect or properties? So I don't know. Is that something?
Good question. I haven't actually cooked with them as of yet. I've wanted to try lion's mane and actually
Hmm.
cook with lion's mane because it just looks really interesting. But I guess that would probably come if I find a growing kit and I can grow lion's mane and it comes down and it's weird, like lion mane type of
I
style.
love it.
So I'd really be interested to cook with it. I'm not sure how in terms of the impact, whether it's similar to like the more concentrated wild crafted powders
Right.
or the tinctures. Something tells me that it probably wouldn't be. I'd imagine the tinctures and the wild crafted powders would be a bit more concentrated in terms of their nutrition. But all the same, I'd imagine that it still has plenty of benefits.
Yeah, and I've even seen recipes for people putting putting medicinal mushroom powders into like desserts or
Yeah, yeah,
into
yeah,
your smoothie. And at first, when I
yeah.
started learning about mushrooms, I thought that they did best for, maybe it was chaga, or maybe I read something that was bullshit. Honestly, I can't
Mm,
remember. But I
mm,
thought they had to be heated. Like I thought it needed to be in a warm drink or boiled or like or heated
yeah,
to a certain point to make a difference. Is
yeah.
that wrong? Is that real?
I'm not actually entirely sure, actually. I'm going to take a look at that. I can see why that would make sense. I mean, I've always
Right.
typically had mine as a tea anyway, just
Me
because I like having
too.
it as a tea.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting. I could see how that may work. So I'm going to look into that for sure.
That would be great. That would be helpful for
Yeah.
me if you could do that research, because I've always been
Yeah.
curious. I'm like, I know this tea thing works, so I'm just gonna stick here
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
go with that. But
Yeah.
it's intriguing to know you could like put
Mm.
it in other things. I don't know why I said baked goods like I ever bake, but the idea is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any other things, mushrooms or not, any other things in the world of vegan nutrition that you're really excited about right now?
Um, I mean, I like, obviously we've got this alternative protein market, and the majority of them I
Mm,
tend to kind of steer away from just because I feel like they're not really, they don't really fall into, I guess, my basket of where I want to eat more whole foods. So I accept that they're there and they're good for people, but I'm seeing there are some brands out there that are making certain products from just whole foods, and for me, that does pique
Yeah.
my interest. There are some other interesting things like cultured meats from like cells of an animal, but it's not using an animal. I'd be interested to see how that looks.
Yeah.
It seems a bit weird to me. I'm not going to lie, but there's interest there all the same. But I don't know. I feel like I just want to just keep down the whole foods route. Just keep encouraging people to eat more whole foods. Of course, there's going to be so many things that are going to come out, and it might push like the real core foods, lentils, sweet potato, broccoli, things like
Right.
that. Might push them to the back burner, but I want to just keep trying to, keep them at the forefront of people's minds. Even if you do want to try some of these other things that are coming up, just make sure that you're keeping on the whole foods, getting diversity into your diet as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's so important because it's a double-sided coin or whatever, both sides of the
Double-edged
sword or
sword, yeah,
whatever
yeah.
analogy or metaphor I'm trying to use. But um there's this like excitement because there's so many more vegan products. Like every year
Mhm.
there's so many more. That means
Yeah,
people are seeing it, people are eating
yeah,
vegan stuff and they don't even realize.
yeah.
And then on the other flip side, I'm like, oh, there's so much processed vegan shit
Yeah,
on the
no, there's
market
exactly.
too
Yeah,
that it's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
uh.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's what worries me because I think people are obviously going to be they see the bright lights of the marketing of these products which are nutritionally devoid of anything really, and then they're going to go towards them. Especially someone who's coming in if they want to eat more plants or eat healthier. For whatever reason, vegan is marketed as healthy, even though it's an ethical standpoint and not really a health standpoint. But people just see it as that anyway, so they think, oh yeah, let me go and get this Beyond Meat or this other weird vegan sausage thing and it's going to be healthier for me, when in reality you're probably doing yourself more of a disservice.
Right.
Just eat whole foods, like just eat foods in their most natural form. And I think that's the easiest way to do it, and realize that you have to cook. I mean, the problem is that I think because we live in such a convenience culture, people still
Yes.
want things to be done as quickly as possible, and that means that the foods that are going to cater to that aren't really going to be the best for you if over consumed, of course, because having one vegan sausage is not going to do anything to you. But when people are going to continue to dial in these habits, and then it becomes difficult to get back to where you want to go. And I just think, look, just cook your own food, and
Yeah.
then you actually, if you realize that cooking is going to be at the forefront of your mind, you automatically realize which foods you're going to want to go for.
Yeah, and thinking of those foods as a treat. Like I might go out to eat tonight and there's a local restaurant that has a, Beyond Meat burger and I'm like that's
Yeah,
probably what I'm going to get because it's like one of two options in my town.
yeah,
So I'm like
yeah,
that's great. I can
exactly.
go
Yeah,
out to
yeah.
eat, but it's not going to be dinner every day.
No, of course not. Yeah, but for a lot of people, it kind of is. And of course, from an ethical standpoint, great, you're doing a great job.
Good
From
for the
what you
animals.
Yeah, great, that's fantastic. But you also deserve respect. Your body also deserves to have the best fuel put into it. So it's a bit of a catch-22 for some people.
Yeah, it really is. I saw in some vegan newsletter I subscribed to or some announcement. I don't know if it was Impossible Burger or the Beyond Meat. One of the companies is coming out with like
Mm.
a, maybe it was Beyond Meat because I think it was Beyond Steak or
No, yeah,
something. And
yeah,
there's like, I
yeah.
was like, okay, it's one thing to make a burger. It's one thing to make like a hot dog or a
Mm.
brat. I
Mm.
got you. It's one thing to make some beef crumbles. Love that,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
But I was like, I wasn't super into steak before. It kind of freaked me
yeah,
out, even when I
yeah,
did eat meat. But I'm like, what is it going to look like? I
yeah,
can't get
yeah,
over
yeah,
it. I'm like,
yeah,
I don't want it, but I really want to know
yeah,
what a Beyond
yeah,
Steak looks like. And is it going to get people? Because I think people can get behind the burgers and the brats.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm like
I
imagining
don't know.
people like cutting. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's too far.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how it works for sure.
I just want to like physically know how it's going to look. I'm just so
Yeah,
curious.
yeah, I can imagine. It's going to be weird,
It's going to be
but
super weird.
we'll see. Um, were we going to touch on psychedelic mushrooms at all? I mean, I could mention that. I
I,
mean,
yes. Okay. Did you want to? I forgot about
yeah,
that.
we
And
can do.
then, okay.
Yeah,
Yes. Let's keep going,
yeah.
please.
So yeah, we can touch on that very briefly because I think, of course, in the mushroom world, culinary, psychedelic, medicinal. I personally think, I've been doing a lot of research into psychedelic mushrooms. I've just been reading loads of stuff, and then I started microdosing last year. And I was like, oh, I'm really kind of noticing some like enhanced creativity and
And you're
focus.
still microdosing?
So I've stopped now for the moment
okay.
anyway.
Sorry.
I mean, I could start doing it again if I wanted to, which I may do. But there are really some real good benefits. Like I remember like waking up in the middle of the night to normally just go to the bathroom as I would, and just having loads of ideas in my mind about stuff, whether it's content or email marketing or things that I could create. And at a certain point, I had to put like a pen and paper by my bed because all of these ideas would just come to my mind, and I would just have to write them down. Because obviously, if I go back to sleep, I'm just going to forget them all. So that was really interesting and just enhanced focus. I thought that was it was quite something. So, and I think it was in sort of Q3, Q4 of last year. That was when I watched Fantastic Fungi. And it's funny because I'm someone who tends to go to sleep early. I tend to go to sleep at 10:30. But for whatever reason, it was a Friday evening. I was in bed. I was like, oh, let me just watch Fantastic Fungi. And the reason how I knew that it was such a poignant documentary was that it was like 12 in the morning, and I wasn't tired. I was so wired just watching this documentary. I was like hooked onto it. And that was when it was like, obviously I'd done microdosing, but I hadn't done, a real actual large dose to have a trip. And that started getting me thinking, I was like, okay, very interested. It's not for right now, but this is something that I'm going to want to do. And when I'm called to do it, I'm going to look into it for sure. And then, of course, everything happened in November with my wife passing away. And that was a period of, it was really difficult for me. Right. At the start of the year, I was able to kind of extricate myself out of that. I had so much support from friends and family, and will be eternally grateful for that. But then around sort of February, March, I really started like feeling called to doing like a larger trip of mushrooms. And then I think, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I think I was talking on Instagram, I did a Q&A about microdosing, and someone was just like, and then we just I started ended up having a conversation with someone, and they were telling me how, how mushrooms help to heal their PTSD and their depression and all these like different things. And she gave me, the details of someone who I could actually source them from. So I ended up getting myself some, and then I met a friend of mine, and we were talking about it, and he was going through some stuff as well. And he was like, oh, what I could really do with the mushroom trip. And that was really going to give me some clarity and give me some, thoughts as to, what to do with certain decisions that I need to make in my life. And it kind of just all aligned at that moment. And I just felt like this is the right time to do it. I wanted to kind of get some understanding with everything that had happened with me. And I did it. And it was like the most profound, like emotional experience of my life. I had it was really, really profound, but I felt like, when you talk about mushrooms healing, I genuinely believe that from my experience in terms of getting answers, understanding why this had happened to me, what was the future going to hold for me with everything, in the wake of everything that had gone on. And I was like, I was very much like, okay, this is the real deal. Like this is something that I think a lot of people could benefit from, because we're seeing in the US now, Johns Hopkins Institute, they're doing lots of different trials around mushrooms and looking at the benefits of PTSD, depression, anxiety, other mental disorders. Like when you watch Fantastic Fungi, you'll understand, like it's so powerful what these can do. And then around about, was it a month or two ago, I did another one with a couple of my good friends, another ceremony. And that was different. That was really, really interesting. That was more like I felt really connected with nature in that one. And that was more of a visual experience, whereas the first one was more of an emotional experience. The second one was very visual. Like I was having visions of, I had visions of being a frog on a lily pad in a forest and just feeling really connected with nature. And then I went out, because where I live has got a lot of green space and a lot of water as well. And I just felt connected, and you just feel like you're at one with everything around you. And it was just like, this is perfect. I just kept on having these beliefs, like this is just perfect. This is a perfect scenario. Like this is what life is supposed to be. We're all supposed to be connected. It was a beautiful day.
Holy shit.
Honestly, it's like, it is so profound. And I think, people have, as I said, I've had so many conversations around it because I've spoken about it quite openly on social media. And I don't say to people, oh yeah, you should do it. I'm just like, look, just be open to it, because you've got to make sure that you're in a good place to do it. Right. Because, there's so much resource out there in terms of having a bad trip if you're not mentally stable. So I'm never going to tell anyone to just go and do it, because I don't know what their mental state is like. But if you're solid, if you've got a solid mental foundation, you're in a good place in life, doing something like that can really enhance you in general. help you find out more about yourself, help you find out more about, what your future holds, provide a deeper connection with nature, a deeper connection with oneness. Like it's very, very powerful. So yeah, for me, I see it as something that really, I mean, people call it, I don't even see it as a drug. I mean, there was a table that I saw that looked at all of the lists of different substances and the impact that they have from a death perspective. And alcohol was like so far in the distance, and mushrooms was like negligible. But yet alcohol is freely available to anyone in society.
Isn't
Like
it fucking wild?
if I wanted to go and drink myself to death tonight, I can go and do that. I can just go
and
to
you
the
could find some people to go do it with you.
Find people to go and do it with, and everyone's going to support, and everyone's going to think it's great. And then I end up in a hospital. But you've got these, I don't even want to call them substances. They're literally mushrooms from the earth that provide people with so much clarity in their lives, healing, and yet they're demonized. It's very strange. Very, very strange.
I feel like I have 1,000 questions. I'm going to try and whittle them down. But I'm curious because you said your first trip was more emotional. And do you think that helped with your grieving process? Like, was that something that you felt like kind of moved 100%. You? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, no doubt about it. It gave me a lot of clarity, a lot of, I mean, there were so many things that helped with my grieving process. There was like, I read some books, obviously, family and friends really rallied around me. So I had plenty of tools. And I guess this was just another tool which allowed me to move a little bit further ahead with the grieving process. So I definitely do think it added something to that. Yeah, for sure.
And then how did you make sure that, because this is something, shout out if my parents are listening, this is something I'm also interested in. And have been for a while, and have a lot of people in my life who have either talked about it, who are also interested. I think it's becoming talked about more from like from a ceremonial standpoint, and not just like a drug, like a party drug.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as I said, every time I've mentioned it in an Instagram Q&A, the amount of questions that I get are floods of questions. Oh, really? What is mushrooms about? Microdosing? Blah, blah. So many people want to know about it. So
yeah. So like, given all that, how did you make sure you felt safe and like ready to do that? Like, was it the people you were around, where you were, whatever? Because I, as someone who can sometimes have some anxiety, I get anxious thinking about having a bad trip. Like, even though that probably won't happen. I still am like, ooh, I would want to make sure everything's good.
So the two key things, your set, which is your mindset, which is where you're at in your life. If you're in a good place, if you're not harboring any past traumas that you may not want to come to the surface. And if you're kind of you're at a level point in your life, that's your mind, your set or your mindset. And then you've got your setting, which is the environment that you're in, the people that you're around, the place that you're, whether you've got like, plants and good music and a real nice, calm ambience to do it in. So set and setting are the two keys without a shadow of a doubt. If you get those two right, you give yourself a really, really good chance of having a really profound, powerful experience. And then, of course, you have that integration process of actually taking what you've kind of learned and taking what you've seen or taking what you've been shown into your everyday life. And that's, that can take weeks, months, however long. It's because it's not something you just do all the time. You don't just it's not like alcohol you do every weekend. Like, you're not just going to be having all of these trips all the time. That's the way I see it anyway.
And you said the word ceremony.
Yeah.
So that is different than like, hanging out with friends and smoking a joint like at a party, whatever. But that the idea of a ceremony makes it feel like it is a little more intentional.
Yes, exactly. Because you have to be intentional with it. So the first time I did it, my good friend, he's been very, very well versed in it. And I had another good friend of mine who I'd been speaking to about it for ages. He's very intentional, and he was giving me like, the lowdowns and the insights and all the different things. And, so the first thing when I did it with my friend, the first thing we did was, have some cacao. We had some cacao, as we know that cacao opens the heart center. Get some sage in the room, make sure that the energy in the room is good, get some really nice calming music on, and then you do it. And that's way different to just, going to do it at a festival, for example, when the energy is so like just helter skelter. And if you do that, actually, you're probably more likely to have a really bad trip just because of the environment that you're in. And people don't really understand that. So yeah, I mean, I would never do it at like I mean, I don't go to festivals anyway, but let's just say I did, I would never do it at something like that, because the energy of people around you, you don't know what to
That
expect.
sounds
You
like
need
an
to make sure.
anxiety attack waiting to happen for me.
Exactly that. So you need to make sure that you're in full control of your surroundings and your setting and the people that you have there with you, making sure that you know that they're going to keep you safe if anything bad was to happen.
Yes.
So yeah, that's super important.
And I think I'm curious if you had any like physical reactions, because I know this is not the same, but I think if it's in my head, it's at least in like, a couple other people's heads. I have this image of did you ever watch Chelsea Handler did a special on Netflix, like a couple episodes. And
Yeah, yeah. What was it about again?
she did peyote, like she went to, I think, Peru or somewhere and did like a
Right.
ceremony,
Okay.
wanted to
Yeah.
dive into some of her childhood trauma, all this stuff.
Right.
And I have
Right.
that image in my head, and the guy next to her shit his pants.
Oh,
Because
wow.
like, and so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
what's
You know what?
happening?
I mean, again, that's something that happens with people like, ayahuasca, like people you literally purge.
Ayahuasca, that's what it
Yeah.
was. That's what
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was. It was
Yeah.
ayahuasca.
Yeah. So you literally purge and you vomit, and yeah, you almost like releasing all of this stuff. I mean, that's the level above. I haven't got to that level yet.
Ooh,
And there's
yet.
another, well, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, with mushrooms, I doubt that there would be many situations, if any at all, that would kind of come close to that. Another plant medicine, Cambo, is another one where I
Hmm.
don't know if you like. So you get these like, it's almost like a
Is that the
little sleeve.
skin?
Yeah. And they put it near
Okay.
your ankle. And again, that can induce some purging as well. So in vomiting and things like that. But I doubt with mushrooms you would kind of experience anything like that for sure.
Well, now I'm like double in, so maybe I'll come to London and we can have a
Oh
ceremony.
yeah. Set up the space nicely and we do
Yeah, I'm like, okay, Jeffrey told me this is going to be okay. The
it.
music is here. I want to be a frog on a lily pad. Let's go.
Honestly, as I said, I think it's, from the emotional standpoint of healing from what I went through, I think it did play a huge part. And then also just a connection with nature. And the great thing about it is that there's so much to learn in this life. It's so
Mm.
much to open yourself up to, so much to find out about yourself if you're willing to just go a little bit deeper. And I think that, mushrooms can really, provide that platform to do so.
And it's obviously something that felt like a positive enough experience that you did it a second time, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and sounds like you would do again.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, I think so. And again, I think the amounts that you take can also determine the depth of your experience as well. And of course, your
Mm.
surroundings change. I can imagine doing it in a forest would just be a real incredible experience. But we'll have to see. But yeah, I think, as I said, just the profound nature of what you kind of gain from it when done properly, when done in the right setting, and your mindset's good. Yeah, I think it's something that people should be learning about for sure.
This is so cool. If you would have told me that I would have a podcast and I would be sitting talking to someone about doing shrooms, I don't know if that would have made sense to me, but I'm super into it. I'm super into it. This is
Yeah, honestly,
so
start with
cool.
Fantastic Fungi. Give that a watch, and you'll definitely. I'm sure you'll have certain thoughts that will be running through your mind for sure.
I'll be home alone this weekend taking care of my parents' dog, so that sounds like a good activity for us to do is
100%.
why, because I don't have a TV, so if I stay in their house, I'm like luxury, so I
Yeah.
watch it on something bigger than my computer, so
Yeah,
that'll be
yeah,
exciting.
yeah, for
Thank you
sure.
for sharing about that experience, because I think it is, like you said, if you get DMs about that or you do a Q&A and people are just like flooding
Mm,
you with questions, it's
yeah,
something that people want to learn about.
yeah, they
And
do.
we
They
have
do.
to talk about like this.
Yeah,
So I
exactly. And
appreciate
this is
you
what I,
sharing
this is what
that.
I love. And no problem at all. And I think this is the good thing about social media. And we
Right.
do see the bad side of social media in so many instances, but it's a great platform to speak about things that maybe people want to know about, but are maybe afraid to open their mouths about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's I'm not afraid to speak about my experiences. I think if they can help someone, then great. So yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Consciously Clueless. If you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, put it on social media. Don't forget to tag me. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Good Pods, leave a review. Reviews and shares help more people to see the podcast and join in on the fun. If you want to make sure to stay up to date on future episodes, follow me at Consciously Carly on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or Pinterest, and head to consciouslycarly.com to sign up for the newsletter. Ready for more conscious living content? Check out patreon.com/consciouslycarly and join the exclusive community over there. And finally, if you're ready to take better care of yourself and the world, let's work together. Click the link in the show notes to head to the website, find out more, and schedule a free discovery call with me. Chat soon. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? By now, you all know that therapy is an important part of my own self-care. It has truly been a game changer in every aspect of my life, including achieving goals. BetterHelp is the largest online therapy platform worldwide. They are changing the way people get help with facing life's challenges by providing convenient, discreet, and affordable access to a licensed therapist. BetterHelp makes professional therapy available anytime, anywhere, through a computer, tablet, or smartphone. You can start communicating within 48 hours. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional therapy done securely online. And I have a special offer for Consciously Clueless listeners. Visit betterhelp.com/Carly and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. By using this code, you get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/CARLY. Take care of yourself today. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.